so much for this very charming introduction. I'm wondering where you get all this information from. And just to be clear, 2nd degree black belt. But don't worry, I'm the nicest person you can find. First of all, I'm fully aware that following up on a great inspirational speaker after a full morning already of great inspirational talks shortly before lunch is not the most ideal spot that you want to be at. I'm aware of that, specifically when it comes to attention levels in the audience. So just really quickly, give me just a sign with your thumbs of what your level of energy is right now. So thumbs up is total focus. Thumbs down is I'm gonna sleep any second. Okay, looking through the lights. Seems to still be quite okay. Although I must say, sometimes you do that, and you know people show you the thumbs up because they are afraid that the speaker might do some weird icebreaker thing if you show them this. So sometimes what you see is this. I do believe you. I do believe that many of you still have your energies up, and I'm gonna do my best help you keep the energy up, okay? Because maybe what I'm gonna talk about now, it might be a little bit of a switch anyways from what we've listened to until now. Until now, we've heard a number of great examples, practices, how to drive innovation, how to build, leadership structures, agile leadership structures. I want to zoom out a little bit from the strategies, from the trends, from the developments. And rather than that, I want to zoom in actually into quite a specific skill or competency. And that competency is facilitation. I want to tell you about facilitation. I want to tell you what it is, that it's more than just about having efficient meetings. More importantly, I want to show you why it might be interesting for you to look into facilitation if you are interested in building cultures and environments where there's lots of empowerment, lots of collaboration. And I'm gonna do this, and I hope you're with me on this, not so much through a data statistics type of lens, but much more through a hands-on personal experience type of lens. Yeah? So maybe this will be a bit of a switch. And I'll start with the personal lens, okay? That's what I would like to start with. Something isn't working. I don't know about you, but that sentence, it comes across on a regular basis. I'm a facilitator, and in a moment I will tell you all about it. But for now, let's just say what I do is I help organizations and teams to develop better solutions. That could be new services, better products through methodologies like design thinking. That could be a new way of collaboration, a better way. So the first thing, of course, that I want to do is I want to find out about the struggles. I want to know where are the challenges of those that I'm about to serve. And in these conversations, no matter if with CEOs, executive boards, or with interns, that's a sentence that comes up on and on. Maybe it's not exactly this sentence. Maybe it's something more along those lines. Okay? For example, someone's telling me, we are having a very respectful and collaborative culture, but still, everything seems to happen top-down. Or other people tell me, well, we've trained our teams intensively in agile methodologies, whatever that is. But actually, it seems to get more chaotic than any more structured or efficient. So of course, whenever I encounter this, my brain starts working as well, and I'm trying to find out why. So what is this thing that might not be working, right? And you could argue that, well, to a certain extent, I guess, it's just because change creates some sort of, disruption, confusion, hardship, yes. But maybe there is another element that sometimes is very much overlooked, okay? So this is really something that comes from what I've observed over many years, working with very different teams, different organizations, startups to public organizations, to academia, to global corporates. Very often what you can observe is that when there's a team or an organization that wants to build a more agile culture, they think of a lot of initiatives that they can do, right? And we've heard about many already. And very often they are connected to one of these two things. Either it's connected to new technologies. So for example, we just introduce a new communication platform. We'll use Slack, or we'll introduce a new idea platform where everyone can, input ideas. And they'll invest in new processes, new methodologies, right? Design thinking, Kanban, Scrum, OKRs, loads that you already know about. And that's all fine. That's all okay. That's all beneficial. Somehow I have this feeling that in doing this, there is an assumption somehow. We don't talk about it, but the assumption is there that, first of all, when we do this, it's going to work out. It's going to work out right away. And if not, then we'll be capable of dealing with it. Yeah? It's not going to be okay. I beg to challenge that thought. I think that this might be one of the elements that is overlooked a bit, because all of these initiatives, they give us great potential. But the potential goes both ways. There's great potential for positive benefits, but there's also great potential for chaos, for frustration. Yeah? And very often that's what we see. That's very often what people talk about when they say something isn't working. They say that, well, the technology doesn't work, it's not integrated right. They say that the new roles are not clear enough. We're supposed to do things on our own now, but we don't know how. We don't know what we are allowed to. Frustration, okay? So in a way, I've started asking myself, why shouldn't we also invest a bit more in that capability of people to deal with that sort of change? New technologies, new structures, new processes. And that's what I want to talk about today. The human capacity to deal with change. Because under all the processes, under everything, there's always still the you and me. The can I trust you? Do you trust me? The what do we do if things don't go the way that they're supposed to go? Do we panic or do we keep a clear head? This is based on us, on how we deal, on our skills and our competencies. And maybe that is the missing link. And maybe facilitation is one thing that comes to it. So let me tell you about it, right? What is facilitation? It's not so easy actually to really talk about it, because what I've found is, well, many people anyways have no connection with that word, rightfully. Seems to be, whatever, floating around. But also if people have a connection, sometimes it's a very different one, which I understand. So for example, if you would ask my friends what I do as a facilitator, many of them might think, okay, I'm just traveling around, living the good life, having drinks, not working at all, which of course is not true. I do travel from time to time, but it's always because there is something to do, all right? If you ask my parents, they would probably think about something like this: standing in front of people and giving a lecture, okay? This is how far we've got in creating the understanding of what I do, and it's partly also because probably I'm a bad communicator in certain ways, but of course it's also just partly true. I do speak, but always with the intention to let others do, yeah? In this sense, this feels also a bit unusual for me, to just stand here and speak, yeah? And sometimes when I speak to potential clients, I often feel this is what they think I do, which is magic, right? So they ask me to come in for a day, for half a day, and then solve all the problems that there are and have great action plan ready to be implemented right away. sometimes also takes a little bit of expectation management to do there, okay? So what is it that we really do? The best way to answer this is just to show examples, okay? I've chosen here 3 examples of projects that I've been involved in, and I've chosen them just to show you the diversity of how facilitation comes into play, right? So what you see here, for example, on the that corner, just gonna point there, up, that was a project where we tried to implement an innovation pilot within primary schools based on design thinking. So I was working with primary school teachers. I need to tell you, until this day, one of the most challenging groups to work with ever. Like, I can tell you stories about it afterwards. I wouldn't have thought, but yes, taught me a lot of things. On the other side, very different. This was a global strategic gathering of a global network of social entrepreneurs coming from all continents of the world. We're coming together, think about what should their sort of global direction be, what is our common ground, and how will this play out for everyone when they go back. Lots of passion, lots of energy, but also lots of tension. Yeah? And here you can see the excitement and the energy on that picture. This was a large process which I've been involved in, trying to develop the first official so-called open innovation strategy for Austria. Where we went through a series of workshops. We called them stakeholder workshops with people from the arts, from business, from sciences, and we tried to sort of build that common ground by involving as many people as we could. And this was just sort of the main workshop, although you can see, not really a workshop. But again, different energies, different people, different cultures, okay? So since this looks like it's always very different from what I do as a facilitator, if you look closely, it's always the same things. What I do is, or what a facilitator does is, guiding groups of people through a dynamic process towards a defined outcome, okay? And this is very important because it's very simple and you could make it way more detailed, but it really says what facilitation is all about. First of all, it's about groups of people. Facilitation, we always talk about collective, not talking about the one person. So the one thing you want to do always as a facilitator is try to understand who these people are that you are working with. What motivates them? What is their interest? What is the struggle? Yeah? Dynamic process. What I always need to do is think about how can a way look like from A to B to C, depending on who you're working with. And it's always dynamic, meaning that you will plan, you will try, but you will know that things will happen that you have not thought of. And that is a natural part of the evolution, and not so much in first place a failure. And that already makes a big difference. And there's always a defined outcome that you want to go towards. Very important. Whatever we do here as facilitators, we do it because we want to reach something. We want to go somewhere. That can be dynamic, that can change, but there's always something that's pulling us. Yeah. Those are the simplest elements that I could give you if you ask me, what does a facilitator do? All right. If you look at this, you might start to see the bridges and the parallels. That this might not only be true for workshops or people like me who are maybe very specialized running workshops. Couldn't this be also true for a project manager, a team leader, anyone who works with a group of people? Wouldn't they also not want to reach a certain point? Do they also not go through dynamic processes if they like it or not? Yeah. So this is where I want to start to build the bridges, because this talk should be about, or it should not be about workshops. It should be about what the approach of a facilitator could have an impact on. And this is where it becomes maybe a little bit more special to you, because until now you might find, okay, well, interesting, but where is that sort of specialness, maybe, if there is any? The thing is, the moment I step into a room, that's the first thing that I know. I won't do the work. That's the first thing I need to understand when I step into a room to work with someone, to work with a group. I know that I won't do the work, and what I mean by this is I don't mean that I will just sit around, drink coffee. Of course I'm going to do it, but I will not write that strategy. I will not define what idea you want to take forward. I will not tell you what that is. It needs to come from you. And that's a very important point to kind of keep in mind. Because of this, my whole focus becomes this. Everything I do as a facilitator, I ask myself, what can I do so I can empower others to be at their best? Because that's my only way to succeed. That's my only way. If you don't want to work, if you don't want to do it, I can't make you do it, right? It's not going to happen. And this is where that approach, the mindset, the skills that in this case I would apply might become a bit more interesting for you. Because all I do is I'll try to empower others. It's my whole goal here. Yeah? So you might ask yourself, okay, but it's easier said than done. I mean, empowering is a big word, right? So what are you talking about? How can you do this? Is it about feedback? Is it about time management? What's there? Yeah? And that definitely is a challenge. And I think this is why very often it's a neglected part to work on that capacity, because it's so hard to grasp. What are the skills that we're really talking about and what is it not? All I can show you is that there is a system to facilitation. And I want to walk you through quickly just to show you that there is a structure of how you would approach a situation with a group as a facilitator. Okay. There are three things, there are more, but three things that I would like to put to your awareness today. There's a mindset, and it always starts with the mindset. Okay. There are certain strategies that no matter in which situation, these are the strategies I'm going for, trying to do. Right. Very importantly, there's also a certain skill set that always comes into play, no matter what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah? I'm gonna walk you through one by one, quickly, on the overview level, but just that you see that there's a structure to this. It's not just feeling good and doing whatever comes to your mind. There is a structure too. So let's start with the mindset. The thing with mindset is that sometimes you hear about it and it seems like such an intangible thing, right? Oh, what is this? And is it something fluffy? Do we really need it? Interesting thing to me is that I think it's not the question if you have a mindset, it's just which one, because something always governs how you approach a situation in the first place. There's always a base level of how you perceive things. If you think something is good or bad, if you think something is helpful or not helpful, it's somehow always based on some core belief that you have, right? And as a facilitator, here, that's sort of the mindset I'm trying to apply before I do anything else. That's how I want to see things. First of all, progress over perfection. There's always something that you can do better. There's always something that could be better, that you could do more. And more often than not, do we find ourselves sticking around, discussing things over and over, knowing that actually sometimes the only way to know if we are going forward or not is to go forward. So as a facilitator, trying to always look for progress. What could be a next step, even if it's not a perfect one, but what could bring us one step further? There's some sort of constructivity in it. There's never just one way. We are all connected through relationships, through personalities, different interests. There is no way that I could ever predict what will happen exactly. By this, I also know that there is never one way that things could go. Sure, I want to plan. I want to have an idea of what could happen. But I know that if something doesn't, there is another way. Focus on what's useful. Seems so simple, but How often do we find ourselves discussing about things that are just not working right now, but it's not of use at this moment? Yeah? Has a lot to do with ego, in detaching yourself maybe from your ego to say what's useful right now and what is not. I'm going to focus on the useful thing, and I'm going to put the other thing to a later stage maybe, where it becomes useful. Yeah? Very important. And this is something I've already talked about. Everything is connected. There's a bit of a systemic mindset that as a facilitator you want to approach. It means that nothing happens in isolation. That's a great thing in a way, but also it makes us a bit more humble because we understand that not everything is within our reach, not everything is within our direct control. And it helps us to focus on what's in our control and to see what's not. And that by doing something, I know that that action, it will have a connection to something else. Yeah? That's the mindset. Now, let's get one step bit more practical. As a facilitator, I find myself in different situations. It's not just meetings. Yes, they might be a part of it. Larger workshops. But also, there's times when someone else is just working. And for example, I'm doing nothing. It's still part of the facilitation. Yeah? And no matter in which situation that is, these are the core strategies I'm trying to pursue. Because these are the strategies that help me to empower whoever I'm working with. Okay? Number one, developing ownership. We all know about this, right? Ownership creates engagement. It's not so easy, if you really think about it, how to do so. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later on. But it is important. How can I give the responsibility to someone else? Because in the end, I will trust that the ownership creates also the motivation to do and to create. Increase efficiency. Very important. It's not just about sort of feeling good, having a good time, being understanding and all the time. Yes, but we want to progress. So efficiency is a key strategy. And that has a lot to do with processes. What are the processes that we are using to make sense of something, to get to a decision, to react when things are not clear to us? What are those processes? Knowing that things might always happen out of the blue. Yeah? Becomes a skill, becomes a strategy. Something isn't working. That's one sentence. But then you ask, so what did you do? Yeah. It becomes more important to know about that. And the answer could be, well, we stopped. Or, well, I didn't, care. Or someone could say, well, we tried to find a new solution. We tried to work with it. The resilience is such an important part, and it becomes a strategy because I know that you will go through challenging times as a group. I know that you will go through times where someone did not give you a go for a certain thing that you wanted to do, where someone was cutting off some resources that you thought you had already to work with, where a team member drops off because they don't want to be part of it anymore. So lots of fallbacks if we see them like this. The question is, how do you react to it? And the resilience is the key to that. To say, well, it's part of the process that things like these happen. They might not be good. We might have done things better, but we're still here now. So what do we do? Resilience. Yeah. And of course, this. It might seem so obvious, but if you think about it, you could develop ownership, increase efficiency, strengthen the resilience, and still have just individuals doing that. Yeah? The collaboration part is the one that says, if someone is struggling, do I have someone else who sees that, who becomes aware of that, and who also comes to help? That's the collaboration. The collaboration is not about we have to do everything together. That's not necessarily collaboration, because we're talking about efficiency as well. Collaboration is about, are we working as a collective or not? And with this, the whole thing becomes powerful. All of these strategies shape the actual impact of your group. Every day, every moment. Yeah? So depending on which situation you are, those strategies can look different in the application. If it's a meeting, if it's a one-on-one conversation you're having, if it's a design for a process that you're doing, those strategies always come into play. Because in the end, they will define where the group will end up. Yeah? Does it make sense so far? Yeah. So we talked about mindset, talked about strategies. It's easier said than done. Well, of course, I'll create ownership. Yes. I'll help the group strengthen the resilience. Well, how do you do it? And what do you need to do it? And this is where we get at the core level of skills that you want to cultivate, that you want to develop, okay? So that's the skills level. Now, the first thing, I always put this first because very often this is what first seems confusing to people because they will never see that this might be a skill, but it is so fundamental. Here it says sensing and navigating. Sensing and navigating is about what is my capacity to actually become aware of what's going on around me, dynamics, emotions that come up, but also what's my capacity to notice what's going on inside of me, okay? Again, emotions, pressure, stress. It's easy to say, hey, you know what, the next time someone complains about something, just sit down with the person and do this and say that. And when that person does this, you do that. Great. We understand the techniques. But can you manage yourself in that situation? Can you deal maybe with the stress that comes up naturally? Can you deal with the emotions that pop up and manage that? This is about this. It actually gives us the base for our whole capacity to act. If I don't even understand that something might be off around me, I will have no ways to address it actively. Yeah? This is why the sensing always goes together with the navigating, because the navigating is, okay, there's something going on, maybe. How can I deal with this? And that's the navigation. How can I bring things up? We can do this as a group. We sense something's off. Something doesn't happen. How will we navigate? Which means, how can we find the next step of action? Yeah. And it's a core skill. Just think about it if that is not there. Of course. It's a big term, effective communication. I'm aware. But what this is really listening, deep listening. We mostly listen to respond. So I listen to you. Actually, I already have my response. And my response could be to convince you about something. When we go to the level to listen just to understand, the whole relationship gets a different quality. But it's also about the act of communication, things like framing, very specific sort of methodologies and techniques. Framing, being able to deliver a message that connects with you actually, because I know who you are, and I give it to you in a way that you will understand. And much more. Yeah? Systemic thinking. Knowing that whatever happens here is always connected to something larger. It helps me to understand why sometimes things happen that I have not maybe anticipated. Yeah? It helps me to plan processes better. It helps me to understand and helps me to explore, because sometimes the reason why you don't want to do that work and you don't want to contribute is not because you're just a bad person. In most cases, it's not about this. In most cases, it's because you have something else that influences you that I might not know about. But because I know that everything is connected and that everyone is connected to something bigger, it gives me a way to explore further. And I will not stop at, okay, this is just bullshit and I don't like it. Great. Well, tell me more about it. And why is it bullshit? Or maybe who told you that it was bullshit. Yeah. And process design. But I put the word human there because when we talk about process design, we need to understand that we go through a process as human beings with emotions, with ups and downs, with I just don't want to do this today, with I need a break, I need to breathe, with okay, this is going completely the wrong way, I'm out. Those are human processes. We can design for that. Not that we will know exactly what will happen, but that we can come up with a better plan of what might happen and what we could do if A, B, or C happens. That's a human process design. Those sound like big words, but here's really my message. Because you might ask yourself, okay, this might seem like a very specific set of skills on mindset, strategies. And the question is, so who is actually a facilitator? I would beg to say anyone who wants to shape and improve the impact of a group. Everything I've talked about now is not something extra, something where you say, we will decide if we do this, and if then it becomes an extra task, we need to integrate it, and if not, then, well, it becomes, no. All of that addresses situations and interactions that you are all in every day. When you are in your meetings, when you are in your one-on-one discussions, when you are planning what you will do next, all of this plays into it. Yes, it might take an extra effort to become aware of it and say, can we change something? Can we do something maybe instead of something? Yeah. But you will do it. You will communicate with each other. You will try to make sense of things. You will have to react when something happens that you don't think did happen. You will have to. Question is just, what's the quality of your reaction? What's the quality of your relationships and the interaction? This is for improving that quality. That's all it is. And depending on your role, you might need a bit more of it, you might need less of it. Absolutely. Yeah? So I want to sort of close the talk with zooming in when we talk about empowerment within organizations. Because this here is more of a structured system of how you can develop facilitation skills. Why do I think that this might be interesting to look into? If you say, okay, we are having an organization here, we're trying to become more agile, more innovative, self-organized. So why would it make sense maybe to build more of that capacity within our teams, within our leaders, okay? Well, when we talk empowerment, it's not so easy as we might think, right? And some of you might sort of resonate with what you will see here. First of all, and that is the classic, empowerment is more than just giving permission to do, all right? It's more than that. It's the classic. Talk to people and then they say, well, I'm empowering people. I just give them the freedom to do. I said do, but nothing happens, okay? Empowerment needs guidance. It needs a structure. Empowerment starts from all sides. Now that's an important one. If you look at a team, so let's say a team of 4 people. Yeah, of course, we could focus on the leader and try to encourage the leader to be more of a facilitative leader. It could help because that leader might be better in understanding the group dynamics. By this also being able to better manage the group dynamics that he or she is within. That leader might be better in quickly adapting to changing circumstances, understanding that that's part of the game, and we might not have to panic right away, but we can still find a new way. It's possible. Why not? And empowering others to be at their best and thinking solutions. Understanding that if I don't do the work, what happens else? Right? The more everyone is at their best, the better we'll be as a group. But here it becomes maybe even more interesting. How about the facilitative team member? I've worked with a communications agency in Germany 2 years ago. Really cool organization. Great culture, very responsive, very just friendly and good. But still, they said, we are working top down. Nothing works. We give everyone the freedom to do. We encourage everyone to give us the ideas. It's not really happening. And it's a long story that I'm cutting short now. But what we found out just through the process of talking with people and working on things is that still, because although they were very good in their relationships, members of teams were still not feeling that they were capable and allowed to do things. Because also they didn't feel that they had the capacity and the skill set to go through this process and say, what do I do if I'm not the facilitator? Yeah? What do I do if I don't have the decision-making power? Can I still shape things? So it becomes interesting as well for someone who's not maybe in a certain leadership position. And the last thing I want to say is this. Empowerment is dynamic, not static. There is no such thing that says, we've done A, B, C, now we are all empowered. Great, checklist, done. Maybe for a certain moment, but right after that moment, it's going to change again. It's a dynamic process. And this is why it's a constant effort that we are trying to put in here. Constantly trying to build those new relations, to build that new trust, to adapt to whatever comes, whatever emerges. And this is why I think that we need better facilitators. Not like me, who do specific workshops, but everyone who works with people and who has an authentic interest in shaping group impact. All right, I think we're ready for lunch. Thank you so much for your attention.